Chris Bassitt got emotional post-game yesterday because he hit a pretty big milestone and he pitched 200 innings, something that hasn't been done in quite a while for a Blue Jays pitcher. And Chris Bassitt really holds himself to that high standard, and he was phenomenal in every sense this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as the crazy playoff race. Things are starting to fall into place, but things are also starting to get kind of crazy. So stay tuned for what's coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And things are really starting to get crazy here, Nick, because we're doing the calculations in our heads, and there's a million different scenarios that I've come up with where the Jays could miss the playoffs, and a million different scenarios in which I came up with that they can go ahead and make the playoffs. They still have a 93.3% chance of making the playoffs, according to Fangraphs, and that's a pretty encouraging number if you are the Blue Jays and if you are a Blue Jays fan as well. However, you still got to go out there and win at least one game. And tonight's game is pretty important. You need a Mariners loss. You need a Houston loss. I mean, we'll break it down as the video goes along here. But, Nick, this is crazy. I mean, we've been talking about the Jays kind of cakewalk into the playoffs for the past couple of days now. All of the comments have been absolutely tearing us apart, saying that we're going to jinx them and that we're going to be the sole reasons as to why they're not playing October baseball. You're wrong, by the way. You're wrong because the Jays are going to be playing October baseball. They have a game on October 1st against the Tampa Bay Rays. So that counts. That counts as October baseball, but that's not what we want to be limited to. We want to go out there and play in a wild card series and then hopefully progress a little bit further. But Nick, this has just been a roller coaster. I mean, the Jays had a chance to go ahead and clinch today, but the Mariners, of course, walked off the Texas Rangers. And we just can't escape the ghost of the Mariners. They just keep coming back and biting the Blue Jays in the butt. But it is what it is. You got to take care of business.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of right in the comment section regarding, if we would have won the series against the Yankees, we would have put ourselves in a, 10 times better spot. That being said, we're still in a great spot, and we'll break a lot of stuff down today. Before we do, we're on the road to 8,500 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, go check, hit the button, and we'd appreciate that with our Daily Jays content. But let's start with the less confusing stuff, and this is Chris Bassitt gets emotional in what was the biggest start of his season, the biggest start of the Jays season. All the fans, you kind of tell a little bit in the crowd, were a bit nervous because if we lose this game or lost the game yesterday, it would have got very, very dicey for everything, especially with the way the Mariners came back. So Chris Bassitt after the game, this was because he did hit, like you mentioned, Peter, 200 innings pitched in his start. And congrats to John Schneider, or props to John Schneider for letting him go out and get those two outs. Striking out Aaron Judge for your 200th inning is a crazy feat, but Chris Bassitt, he was emotional in his postgame. He said, "There's been a pain that I've held for well over a year just because of how last year ended for me. And I promised myself that I'm going to give the best chance I got to the team that signs me." And that was the Blue Jays. He didn't push for 200 innings. He didn't try to chase 200 innings, but he tried to chase the postseason. And that's what he did. Peter, I'll have a couple more screenshots in a minute, but what are your initial thoughts on this? He's a competitor, one of the best contracts that have been signed by, Ross Atkins, along with the Gosse one. His offseason signings have been, you can criticize all you want about the trades he makes, but his signings have been pretty dynamite, even Yusei Kikuchi. So what a season for Chris Bassitt. What a way to end the regular season for, obviously, Chris Bassitt. And who knows if he's going to be starting game 2 or 3, but what a way to end his season. And he's a competitor, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And where would this team be without him? 200 innings is no joke, especially in this day and age with all the pitch limitations and all the restrictions that are put on these arms. But Chris Bassitt is a veteran, and you hear throughout the broadcast that he understands his body better than anyone, and he knows when it's time to shut it down, and he knows when it's time to maybe push for a little bit extra, and that's what he did yesterday. He was already at 100 pitches. I didn't love the fact that he was coming out, but hey, it was a 6-0 game. He should be able to go out there and take care of business. And of course, he got Aaron Judge to get that final out to reach that 200 inning benchmark, which was so important. I mean, it's a big barometer as to how consistent a pitcher is and how well he shows up every fifth day. Chris Bassitt came up against some really tough pitchers this year. I mean, he beat Spencer Strider, he beat Garrett Cole a couple of times. The list goes on, and he was just a competitor. And at the Rogers Center as well, he was just dynamite. He was shut down over there. He tied his season high in strikeouts yesterday with 12, and he just looked phenomenal. He threw a pitch at 96 miles an hour, and I think the concerns with the fan base is that maybe his stuff doesn't really play up to postseason baseball. Maybe he's not the ace caliber pitcher that you want pitching in a postseason game, but he's just so steady, and you know what you're getting out of him every fifth day. He's had a couple of rocky starts, but he's a guy that consistently pitches deep into games. He's someone that gives the Blue Jays a chance every time he steps out on that rubber. And what a competitor. I mean, I'm glad that he's going to be here for at least another 2 years, and someone that the Jays have really leaned heavily upon this year. We talk about Kevin Gausman, and we talk about the resurgence of Yusei Kikuchi and Jose Barrios as well. But sometimes Chris Bassitt gets lost in the shuffle, and the amount of complete games that he's had this year, the amount of 8 inning performances, and he's just been steady as a rock in that rotation. And I don't even want to begin to imagine where this team would be without him, because he's really been special this year, and I'm super happy for him. Couldn't have happened to a better dude.
Yeah, and he went on to say that after tonight's win, you could feel how much 200 innings really meant to Chris Bassitt. It's been his goal forever, and I think it's a benchmark for elite pitchers, and he's not wrong. Is Chris Bassitt per se an elite pitcher? You can have your own judgments on that, but he put up 200 innings in, like you said, a day and age where starters are getting pulled after 5 innings, after 6 innings. John Schneider's pulled his starters early, but Chris Bassitt's a guy who, I was looking through his game log last night, you see lots of 8 inning pitched, lots of 7 innings pitched, and he put an exclamation point on his season yesterday. John Schneider called him as good of a competitor as he's ever seen. So huge shout out to Chris Bassitt. He definitely deserves, all the good praise that's coming his way over the next or past, 24 hours. And hopefully he can carry that into the postseason, where he'll probably line up to be our Game 3 starter based on rest. But it kind of depends. We don't really know yet. That will be something for another day. But Peter, let's discuss some craziness now. And this is getting a little bit wild. We're going to cover a couple things quickly here over the next 6 minutes or so, 6 or 7 minutes. We're going to start with Cavan Biggio, because this guy, and we could do a whole video about him, and I'm sure we will over the offseason. He's playing himself into, not only a playoff spot, but a roster spot next season. His defense has been elite. His base running is elite. Like, everything about this guy is, I don't know, he's turning into the player that we all thought he was going to be after the COVID 2020 season, when he put up a 250 plus average and great on base percentage. And this is also Kevin Gausman shouting out Chris Bassitt some more. But since the All-Star break, Biggio is slashing 287, 410 on base, 799 OPS. I believe Blue Jays Today tweeted that, so shout out to them for tweeting that. Always tweeting good stuff. But Peter, Biggio's, baseball savant isn't the best. It's not the greatest in the world, but you can see in the left there, he's got his OPS over 700. And the way he's so versatile, the way his defending has been, and his hitting, a huge RBI single yesterday. He got, I think the first hit of the game to right field in the second inning yesterday as well. I can't say enough about this guy. Any quick thoughts before we move on to the crazy playoff berth stuff?
You just got to give him so much credit, because the fan base, and us included, we were all just ragging on the guy all season long. When is he going to turn the corner? When is he going to become that player that we've all hoped that he would become? And we just really didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, he's 27 years old, maybe 28 now, and this is the time. This is the time for him to really come into his own, and he's gone ahead and done that. He can play multiple positions. He's played some shortstop. He's played right field at times. He's played first base, second base, third base, and he hasn't looked out of place at either position that he's been at. So he's been really good with the bat. He's cut down on his strikeouts big time. I mean, the whiffs have just completely evaporated from his game, and that's because he's sacrificed a bit of the power. Maybe he's not hitting as many doubles, as many home runs as you'd like, but he's getting on base at a ridiculous clip, and he's putting the bat on the ball, and he's giving the Blue Jays a chance. He's going out there, giving them great at bats. He's getting on base. He's driving in runs. He's just been phenomenal in these ever since the All-Star break, ever since that rough stretch of play earlier on in the year, and he has played himself into an everyday role. And I can't believe we're saying this, but now we can't even imagine a playoff roster in which he isn't in the starting lineup, wherever you want to put him, whether it's at first base, second base, third base. I mean, he's just been so good over these over these last few games. And we talk about Chris Bassitt. Where would this team be without him? Where would this team be without Cavan Biggio stepping up in the midst of a lot of injuries, in the midst of a lot of underperforming star players that the Blue Jays have? He's just been so good, and really really warming up to him as well. I want to give him a personal apology for writing him off earlier on this year.
Yeah, the only reason that we're even, talking about, the playoffs in this video is because of I guess, the next man up approach the Jays have had with specifically Kevin Biggio. But you can also talk about guys like Ernie Clement, although he's not on the team right now. His impact was huge, and David Schneider as well. So huge shout out to Biggio, and he's turning into one of my favorite players to watch. Because no matter where he plays, he's doing crazy things. Saw him at second base yesterday, make crazy plays, and first base, he's had a few gold stars. Now, Peter, let's quickly discuss this before we wrap up. If you're in tune with the magic number stuff, it is a little bit complicated. Our magic number is technically 2. Although the Mariners won yesterday, if they would have lost and they didn't walk off in crazy fashion, we could have clinched with a win tonight at home, which would have been phenomenal to see the celebration like previous years. However, if we win tonight and either the Houston or the Mariners lose, we're guaranteed a postseason berth. Now, Peter, I don't like relying on other teams to lose to make the postseason, so I just want them to win 2 out of 3. If we win 2 out of 3, if we win the series against the Rays, who really have nothing to play for, we make the playoffs. But there's a lot of weird situations that we can make the playoffs, but there's also a lot of weird situations that we can't. But that Astros series, I know a lot of you guys are watching the Mariners series, but the Astro one is almost as important because we hold the tiebreaker over the Astros. Or none of this will matter tomorrow if we win tonight and one of those two teams loses.
Yeah, well, let me just try to break it down as best as I can here. So Houston is playing against Arizona tonight at 9:40, so you'll be able to catch that. I'm sure it's on one of the Sportsnet channels. But it's JP France going up against Zach Gallen. And to put into perspective, Arizona's magic number is 1 to clinch a postseason berth, and they have their best pitcher out there on the mound. JP France has been up and down this year for Houston. But I'd probably give the edge to the Diamondbacks in that game. I mean, they've been playing some good baseball as of late. I think Corbin Carroll is a stud, and Zach Gallen is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. So I think Arizona has got the edge there tonight. And when you look at the Seattle-Texas matchup, it's Brian Wu for the Mariners, and it's Nathan Eovaldi for the Texas Rangers. Again, another edge to the Texas Rangers, whose magic number is also 1 to go ahead and clinch the division. So they have something to play for. And they will throughout, if they can win one game, then they won't have anything to play for. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. But yeah, I mean, these games here are crucial, and the Blue Jays are going to be in tough today. Aaron Savali, pretty good starter for the Tampa Bay Rays. Yusei Kikuchi, he hasn't been great as of late. He's probably played himself out of a playoff start as well, although I think Chris Bassitt would have still been the number 3 had the playoffs started today. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be an easy matchup. It's going to be nervy. So settle in. I mean, but this is what we wait for all year long. Tampa Bay has nothing to play for. They're going to want to rest their starters in the next couple of games. So that should give the edge to the Toronto Blue Jays because they have nothing to play for. But you never want to leave your fate up to the other teams. You want to go ahead and take care of business. The Jays made their beds. Now they're got to go sleep in it because they lost 2 out of 3 against the Yankees. The magic number is still 2. So 2 wins gets you in. You don't have to worry about anyone else losing. But if you win 1, you're relying on other teams to go ahead and help you clinch a postseason berth. And you don't want to do that. But it's just, it's an exciting time. It's very exciting. And just, get ready. Get fired up for this because who knows how many games we have left here.
Yeah, that was a good breakdown. So you can rewatch that if you're confused. That's the best way to put it. But at the end of the day, the only benefit the Jays have right now, or I guess the silver lining, although we are playing against Aaron Savali, the Rays have nothing to play for. They're locked into that wild card 1 spot. So they're probably not going to be putting out their A-plus lineup, at least not over the next couple games. But hopefully none of this will matter. We take care of business tonight. We win the game, and most likely the odds are in our favor that one of the Astros or Mariners lose. And if that's the case, you can have your own personal Friday night celebration, doing whatever you feel up to it. But that'll wrap up the video. Hopefully Yusei Kikuchi could, clinch a playoff berth or help clinch a playoff berth for the Blue Jays, which would be pretty poetic after his pretty horrible season and bounce back this year. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.